Okay, so now that we've finished the front side of our Unit 1 assessment review, we're going to go on to the back. Our first question, question number 5, asks us to draw the scale copy using a scale factor of 1/4. So that means that every side needs to be 1/4 of the original size in our scale copy, which is the same thing as dividing by 4. So if we look at our original, we can see that the top side is 4 units long. And then again, we can't measure diagonals, but we can see that this side over here is also 4 units long. And then this side over here is 2 units long. Well, if I'm taking 4 and I'm taking 1/4 of that, or dividing by 4, that becomes just 1 unit. That means that this side, going from top to bottom, is also going to only be 1 unit. But then 2 divided by 4, well, 2 divided by 4, or 2 times 1/4, gives us 2/4, which is equivalent to 1/2. So that means that the point of our triangle is just going to be a half a unit away from this side. So I'm going to put it at the halfway point, and I'm going to connect it down. And there we are, 1 unit by 1 unit by half a unit. Question number 6, images using scales. A scaled map of a park says that 5 centimeters equals 10 kilometers. Notice I have underlined this for you because this is the scale that you're going to be using. We know that the map is 15 centimeters wide. How wide is the actual park? Well, I know that if I have my scale, that I have 5 centimeters to every 10 kilometers, that if the map is 15 centimeters, that matches over here with centimeters. So the map, remember, is the drawing, not the actual park. Well, to get from 5 to 15, I'm going to have to multiply that by a scale factor of 3. So if I do that on one side, I have to do the same thing to the other side because all lengths are increased by the same scale factor. So the actual park must be 30 kilometers wide. And then I should, because this is a word problem, I should answer that with a sentence. The park is 30 kilometers wide. Question B, the length of the park is 10 centimeters. So before we were talking about the width, and now we're talking about the length of the park being 10 centimeters. And again, we want to know how long is the actual park. So if on the map it's 10 centimeters, how big is it in real life? Well, we're using the same scale factor from above because we're talking about the same park and the same map. So I still know that there's 5 centimeters to every 10 kilometers. Well, if the park is 10 centimeters long on the map, then I know that over here I'm talking about centimeters. Well, that's just increasing by a scale factor of 2. So that means that my actual park is also increasing by a scale factor of 2. So it is 20 kilometers. Because if I know that 5 centimeters represents 10 kilometers, then 10 centimeters has to represent 20 kilometers. 15 centimeters would represent 30 kilometers. All we're doing is counting by 5s because we started off with 5 centimeters. So the park is 20 kilometers long. All right, problem number 7. Use the same scale. So we're using the same scale from the last problem for another park across town. It is 40 kilometers wide and 80 kilometers long. How big would the drawing be? So notice that now it's giving us the measurements of our actual park. We're talking about kilometers. And now we're trying to figure out how big the drawing would be. So that means that we're going to have to go from kilometers back to centimeters. We're using the same scale. So again, I'm going to be writing down my scale of 5 centimeters to every 10 kilometers. Okay, and I'm going to start then with knowing that the park is 40 kilometers wide. Well, I know if that 5 centimeters is 10 kilometers, we already know that 10 centimeters is 20 kilometers. 15 centimeters is 30 kilometers, so it's going to be 20 centimeters is 40 kilometers. And again, you can just check that by using a scale factor. Well, getting from 10 to 40, which we know from our problem, is multiplying by 4, and 5 times 4 is 20. So we know right now that the drawing would be 20, and remember we're talking about the drawing, so 20 centimeters, and we're talking about the width, so wide. So the drawing would be 20 centimeters wide. Okay, now let's figure out how long it would be. Well, it says 80 kilometers long. I can either continue my pattern of counting by 5s, or again, I can just find the scale factor. Well, if I know I'm at 40 kilometers and I want to get to 80 kilometers, I can just multiply by 2. So again, I can multiply by 2 over here, and that means that the drawing would be 40 centimeters long. And it makes sense, right? If this side is double this side, then this side is also going to be double this side, because the shape is not changing. Just the units that we are using is changing, because we are using a common scale factor. So the drawing would be 20 centimeters wide and 40 centimeters long. All right. Finally, question 8. Use different scales to draw the country of Groenlandia. That's a made-up country, by the way. It is 30 miles wide and 40 miles long. So the first scale that it gives us is 1 centimeter to every 5 miles. So if I have 1 centimeter to every 5 miles, I know that's my given information, and I know that it's 30 miles wide and 40 miles long. So I need to get from 5 miles to 30 miles. Well, 5 miles to 30 miles, I know that 5 times 6 gives me 30. So on the other side, I can do 1 times 6 will give me 6 centimeters. Okay? And that makes sense, because if 1 centimeter is 5 miles, 2 centimeters would be 10, 3 centimeters would be 15, 4 centimeters would be 20, 5 centimeters would be 25, and 6 centimeters would be 30 miles. All right, so now I know how wide it is, and now I need to figure out how long it's going to be in my drawing, and I actually have to draw it. So it says that it's going to be 40 miles long. Well, if I have 40 miles, again, I can go back to my original scale factor, and I know that 5 times 8 equals 40, and so I know that 5 was matched with 1. 1 times 8 would give me 8 centimeters. So if I'm going to draw the country of Groenlandia, that means that it's going to be 6 centimeters wide and 8 centimeters long. So I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to make sure that I'm on the centimeter side, and I'm going to make it 6 centimeters wide. So I'm going to go from 0 to 6, and I'm going to make that, and I'm sorry I'm having to scoot over for my ruler's sake, but I will show you in a moment. I'm going to make that 8 centimeters long. Okay. So here's my country of Groenlandia. It is 6 centimeters wide and 8 centimeters long. And make sure when you draw this that you label the sides. All right, I cut in a little bit to my space, but I think I should still have room for this one. It says use a scale of 1/2 inch to every 10 miles. Well, I'm going to write it over here since I'm a little short on space, that I have 1/2 inch to every 10 miles. I'm going to make my life a little bit easier, and so I don't have to be thinking about fractions at the moment. And I'm going to tell myself, well, if each half of an inch is 10 miles, then I know that 1 inch, which is times 2, would be equivalent to 20 miles. Okay? But I want to find 30 and 40 miles. Well, I know that 10 plus 20 miles gives me that 30 miles I need. So then that means my ½ inch plus my 1 inch gives me that 30 miles, 1½ inches. We're continuing the pattern of counting by ½ inches, and each one is 10 miles. Well, if I continue that pattern again and add another ½ inch, I'm at 2 inches, and add another 10 miles, that gets me up to the 40 miles that I need. So that means that Gridlandia is going to be 1½ inches wide, because it's 30 miles wide, and 2 inches long. So now I'm going to make sure I'm using the inch side of my ruler, and my halfway mark on my inches is right here. So I'm going to go from 0 up to 1½ and then I know that it's 2 inches long. Again, I'm going to have to scoot over the paper so my ruler fits, but I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so I have 1½ by 2 inches. Again, I'm going to go up to 1½, and then I'm going to connect it, and that's going to be 2 inches long. Okay, so there I have it. I have that it is 1½ inches wide and 2 inches long. Notice that my countries, if I've drawn them right, are still going to be the same shape, just different sizes.